Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn, and today we're back at it with another standard deck tech straight out of Final Fantasy Standard. This one is called Northern Crater. We're going back to Mardu. This is a deck that I made last season that I absolutely adored, and I think some of you guys out there agree with me. I called it the Hive. We utilized all of the new mobilize mechanics, but also Core Steel Cutter and the double spell mechanics and prowess mechanics, and we had all of these different synergies, aristocrat synergies, just all piled on top of each other, coexisting and just snowballing into absolute insanity. And we've now taken that deck and upgraded it and taken it to its limit. We have a few new additions from Final Fantasy that I think make it super, super cool. And this just might be the best deck for Sephiroth in Standard, because it's not built around Sephiroth. Sephiroth is just extra gas, and because of that, they can't just completely cut you off at the knees by killing Sephiroth, because everything else in the deck is just a machine that is taking over. And if they focus too much on trying to get rid of Sephiroth, it kind of doesn't matter. You just run them over anyway. It's just the perfect card for this deck. There's a couple of other surprises that we'll get to when we break down the deck. Before we do, please like the video. It helps me get out to so many more people. To all of you guys that have been liking the video every time, thank you. Thank you. You don't even understand. Thank you so much. If you're new here, subscribe so you never miss an upload. I've got even more deck techs on the way. I've got more Wonders of the First content on the way. And speaking of that game, I'm at Origins right now at the time that you're watching this, hanging out, probably at the Wonders of the First booth, but also perusing the rest of the halls, hanging out with people, playing games, probably playing some sealed magic, some draft magic. Come hang out with me. Come find me. Join the Discord and message me if you're going to be at Origins. I'd love to hang out. So come find me, do the thing. I'll see you at Origins, and let's break down this deck. So this is Northern Crater, and it's kind of a mobilized deck, but it's kind of a Core Steel Cutter deck. It's kind of a second spell cast deck, but kind of a sacrifice deck. It's just kind of a whole bunch of things that have overlapping synergies just jammed together. But the best part about this deck is we're running 4 copies of Case of the Stashed Skeleton, which gives us access to essentially a demonic tutor in this deck under the right circumstances. Gives us a 2/1 menace creature for 2 mana. If they block it and kill it, we turn on the Case and turn it into basically a demonic tutor to search up any of our one-off tutor targets. And the real bread and butter of this deck comes in the form of those tutor targets that you can search up in just the right situation, so you always have the best answer regardless of whatever you happen to be up against. But more importantly, there are so many things in this deck that want to sacrifice creatures, so it gives us a nice body that we want to sacrifice that we can enable our stuff and then still get the tutor later on, which is really amazing. That tutor is going to allow us to, under certain circumstances, search up our 1 copy of Kuja, Genome Sorcerer. He's pulling double duty in this deck because he spits out a 0/1 black wizard creature token at the end of every one of our turns. And that creature will also ping for 1 damage every time we cast a non-creature spell, which we have a ton of in this deck, and also just be a random 0/1 body that we can sacrifice if we need to enable some of our sacrifice payoffs and maybe get some extra pings and drains that way. So those wizards are super useful for multiple reasons in this deck, specifically because it's a sacrifice deck that also uses a lot of non-creature spells to make the sacrifice fodder. So going back to the beginning of the curve, before we talk about the rest of the Silver Bullet tutor targets, we've got 4 nesting bots and 4 stadium headliners. These are the things that we want to play on turn 1. They allow us to go wide super quick. Stadium headliner doubling as removal because we are going so wide so quick. We can sacrifice it to do damage to an opponent's creature, get a really problematic threat off the battlefield. But we've also got 3 Scornblade Berserkers. Not only is this sort of like a backup plan B 1-drop for turn 1 in case we don't get the Stadium Headliner or the Nesting Bot, but it's also a nice way to have even more built-in sacrifice enabling and card draw so that we can just potentially toss this down, back up something we don't mind getting rid of, end up sacrificing it to draw a card, maybe even swing in to get extra damage with it at first because it gets the +1/+1 counter from backup, and no matter what, you've got this Scornblade Berserker left behind that can either be sacrificed for value with other cards, or you can just sacrifice it to its own ability and draw a card later on, and then trigger any kind of your death triggers as well. So really nice kind of glue that glues the deck together by being a backup thing we can play on one, but something that's even better if we play it later on. And speaking of something that's cheap and even better if we play it later on, we've got 8 1-mana draw spells, 4 Corrupted Conviction, an instant where we have to sacrifice specifically a creature to draw 2, and then 4 copies of Desperate Measures, which was a new card in Tarkir Dragonstorm that is absolutely overlooked and awesome in this deck. It functions in a similar way to Corrupted Conviction, where we basically kill one of our creatures and draw 2 cards, but it's a little bit different because it technically doesn't sacrifice the creature, it gives the creature +1/-1 until end of turn. And under certain circumstances, this gives it a little bit more versatility. Sometimes if we're desperate, we can use it on our opponent's creature just to kill it if our opponent's creature only has 1 toughness. We can also just use it to buff up one of our creatures that has 2 or more toughness to get in for 1 extra point of damage, whether that's to trade for one of their creatures that we're just barely able not to without the Desperate Measures, or maybe just to get in for that last point of damage to actually win the game if we're alpha striking in. So a lot of versatility in this card, but having 8 1-mana things that draw us cards make it easy to just dig into our deck, double spell like crazy, and never run out of gas, while also triggering all of the prowess triggers in the world. And all of that is stuff that lines up super well with Kori Steelcutter. So once we get this out, every single turn where we double spell, we're going to make a new 1/1 prowess token that's going to get prowess triggers off of all of these cheap spells that we're playing, but also constantly get the double spells because we keep drawing into more cheap gas to allow us to double spell every turn, and we just start to fill up the board super quickly with Kori Steelcutter, turn after turn after turn. And not only is that good for just pushing in and being aggressive and doing damage, but also we have even more tokens to potentially sacrifice for all the sacrifice synergies in the deck, which is really amazing. We're also running 2 copies of Elis Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim, a 2/2 Death Toucher for 2 mana. Every time we create a creature or play a creature, we're going to gain a life, and every single time a creature dies, our opponent's going to lose a life. So when we're playing with Stadium Headliner, a mobilized card, that allows us to essentially make a new creature and sacrifice a creature every single turn, so we gain 1 and make them lose 1 every single turn. In a similar fashion, we're running 4 copies of Voice of Victory, a 2-mana 1/3 with Mobilize 2 that also makes it so our opponents can't cast spells during our turn, which is nice to protect it against, instant speed removal and stuff like that. But this swings in, makes 2 1/1 tokens that will have to die at end of turn, which means they will both trigger Elis Ilkor both on entering and on leaving, which is awesome. But then all of these mobilized tokens that were created act as really good sacrifice fodder for all of our sacrifice enablers, like the Desperate Measures and the Corrupted Conviction and the Scornblade Berserker and some of the other stuff that we have in the deck that we haven't gotten to yet. The 4 copies of Case of the Stashed Skeleton really help with this because they are a non-creature. They'll trigger all of our prowess synergies, but they'll also help us get to double spell with Kori Steelcutter. They'll give us more aggression on the board, and then eventually give us that tutor so that we can find some of our one-offs. And the one-ofs is where this deck gets really crazy. We have 1 Feast of the Victorious Dead. This thing can gain us a ton of life if used right, and also distribute a bunch of +1/+1 counters. In order to make this card work well, you need to be constantly sacrificing creatures, but constantly keeping creatures around that you're not sacrificing to get the benefits of the +1/+1 counters. So this deck is perfect for a card like this. All of those mobilized tokens or anything else that we're sacrificing for our sacrifice payoffs, they're all going to trigger the Feast of the Victorious Dead, and then you're going to gain a bunch of life and put a bunch of counters on your better creatures that you want to stick around so that it's harder for them to die. We've also got 1 copy of War Leader's Call. In a deck like this, it's insane. Not only is it buffing everything, including the mobilized tokens that we're making, but every single time another creature enters, we're pinging for a damage. So all of that mobilize, or all of this really cheap draw through our deck, play a whole bunch of creature out spam, is going to be able to ping the opponent for a bunch of damage while also just in some cases doubling the size of our board. So if it's the right situation for a War Leader's Call, this is absolutely the right thing to snag with a Case of the Stashed Skeleton by sacking it and using it as a tutor. We've also got Treacherous Greed, which can equally be insane gas in the right situation and possibly the right thing to tutor up. 3 mana, an instant. As an additional cost to cast it though, you have to sacrifice a creature that dealt damage already this turn. If you do, you draw 3 cards and then drain your opponent for 3 life, which is really, really good if you can get it to line up well. The problem is it doesn't always line up well, but with a bunch of mobilized creatures, you're always going to have these little tiny tokens that are pinging in for damage that the opponent doesn't really want to block because they're going to die anyway. And then after they get in for damage, you can easily sacrifice them to the Treacherous Greed, completely fill up your hand, drain the opponent for even more life, and help to win the race. It can be really, really nuts if used just right. Speaking of being used just right, we have 1 copy of Split Up, because sometimes your opponent's just winning the race, or just has a board situation that you cannot catch up to. Snag your Split Up with your Case of the Stashed Skeleton once it gets to the point where you can tutor with it, and then you can situationally destroy either all tapped creatures or untapped creatures, and you can try to prepare your board state so that you can recover from it as well. If they're holding back a bunch of blockers, try to swing with everything and then split up and take out all of their untapped creatures. Otherwise, if they're being super aggressive and you just need to kill their aggro, you can name all tapped creatures, not attack yet, kill all their stuff, and then afterwards swing in with all of your stuff and trigger your mobilize. We've also got 1 copy of Delny, Streetwise Lookout. This card's kind of nuts in this deck because most of our creatures have power 2 or less and can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater, which is really, really good under certain circumstances. If you have a ton of mobilized tokens heading in that just can't be blocked, it's awesome. But we also have certain triggers that this will double as well, because if an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So Voice of Victory will do double the mobilize triggers and you'll mobilize 4. Same thing with Stadium Headliner, you'll end up mobilizing 2. Nesting Bot will give you double tokens. Scornblade Berserker will back up 1 twice. There's just so much craziness to this. Ellis Ilkor, both of its triggers will trigger twice. Just a lot of really good value to get out of Delny if your board state is in the right situation. So if it is, you could tutor it up. That's why we're running 1 of all of these things. All of these things they're all cards that are kind of like situationally really, really good if you're up against just the right deck and just the right situation, but won't always be great. Sometimes they can be dead cards. So being in a deck like this that can so easily turn on the Case of the Stashed Skeleton and have access to a cheap, reliable tutor means that we can have all these silver bullet targets that we can tutor up under the right circumstances. We've also got 1 copy of Dollmaker's Shop. Even though this is best played on turn 2, it's still better to keep it as a 1 of, because multiple copies of this card start to lose their value. We only need 1 copy of Porcelain Gallery, even though multiple Dollmaker's Shops will get us extra value. That being said, if we do happen to pull this 1 Dollmaker's Shop, being able to create an extra token every single turn when we swing is really good, and then eventually if we make it to the late game, being able to turn on the Porcelain Gallery and make every single creature huge, even our mobilized tokens, is absolutely nuts. Now, talking about the Final Fantasy cards, we already talked about Kuja, which is super fun at the top end. Like I said, it spits out tokens that do everything. We have so many non-creatures in this deck that give us creatures like Corey Steelcutter and Case of the Stashed Skeleton, Corrupted Conviction, Desperate Measures. Like, all this stuff is triggering our wizards, which is amazing. But if we're desperate, we can just sacrifice those bodies for our death triggers as well. We also run 1 copy of Reno and Rude, 2 mana for a 2/1 menace. But whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you exile the top card of that player's library, and then you may sacrifice another creature or artifact, and if you do, you can play the exiled card and spend mana of any type to cast it. This is just a little bit of extra sugar on top. This card, if it manages to hit in, it's not always going to hit something that you want to play. But if it does manage to hit something you want to play, you have so many negligible little pieces of sacrifice fodder that you don't mind getting rid of. Half the time it's even just a mobilized token that's going to go away anyway. So it's almost completely free to just sacrifice your worst thing, maybe the mobilized token, and being able to play whatever you exile off the top of your opponent's deck. So I actually think Reno and Rude's a really good card in this deck, but it is somewhat situational and it's also legendary, so we are going to run it as a one of. Similar to Dollmaker's Shop, it's better if you play it on curve on turn 2, but it's still best as a one of, I think. And then the last card is just one lonely copy of Sephiroth Fabled Soldier. I've tried to build decks with this guy so far in Standard, and what I've come to figure out is every time I build the deck centering around Sephiroth, where the plan is to make Sephiroth go off as crazy as we possibly can, those decks ultimately fail because he's got such a target on his back. Every time you play Sephiroth, they just instantly take him out, and you never get to do the thing. But what's great about Sephiroth in this deck is he's just extra. It doesn't really matter if they kill Sephiroth, because the rest of your deck is just an engine that is going to town every single turn. And if they're taking their eye off the ball and trying to deal with Sephiroth, that's just even more of your gas getting through, which is really, really nice. It's also nice that it's a one of that we can tutor up in the right circumstances, because maybe we have a board state where we're guaranteed that we can get 4 triggers in the same turn. And if that's the case, then we tutor him up, we play him, knowing that we're going to be able to flip him, and otherwise we can just find something else if we don't know that we can flip him. So really, really cool as a tutor target. We can almost guarantee the fact that we're going to flip him every time we search him up, which is nice. And then when he does flip, we get even more death triggers, we get an insane body in the air, and we get a way to swing and sacrifice a bunch of stuff to draw a bunch of cards and drain for a bunch of damage, and it's just absolutely insane. So I do think a deck like this that is able to leverage Sephiroth as just even more kind of sugar sprinkled on top, even more gravy, and not necessarily the core build around, I think that is the best way to use him. And when you do get to use him, it feels so sweet. The mana base, very specific. We want to be able to curve out, so we're playing a lot of lands that come into play untapped. We're playing just one copy of the new starting town, because we don't want to get too greedy with it and take too much damage. But if you want the full mana base, it is in the deck list in the description, and it's also in the Aether Hub link as well if you want to export it there. So check that out if you want, but let's check out the gameplay. I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Wonders of the First. Wonders of the First is a brand new collectible card game similar to games like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, featuring a unique action-based resource economy that helps avoid pitfalls like Mana Flood or Mana Screw, and a battlefield containing multiple realms that unlock over time as you fight for control of the stones. The first 400 card set is called Existence, and they've even partnered with Star City Games to host their competitive play tour at every single SCG-Con event starting in August. The game contains alternate borderless art variants, as well as highly sought after limited edition numbered prints, culminating in a one-of-one stone foil. And the best part is that the developers have a community-first approach, with a card database and deck builder available via Cardio, as well as a version of the game available on Tabletop Simulator, all for free. For more information, be sure to check out wondersccg.com today. That's wondersccg.com. Alright, we're gonna keep this, I think. We could play Nesting Bot on 1, or Stadium Headliner on 1. I mean, Stadium Headliner probably gets us the most value if we're trying to be aggressive, whereas Nesting Bot gets us the most value if we're trying to be defensive. I think we probably want to be defensive, right? We probably want to worry about his removal right now. So we'll start with that. We'll probably play Ellis on 2. Could play Voice of Victory too. It wouldn't be awful. Just hit for 1. That works for me. Wow, that's it? That's it? That's all you got for me? Okay. Well, he's probably going to have removal. I think we're gonna do this. This messes with his mana. Either he has to waste his removal on our nesting bot, or he has to waste his turn 2 not being able to play anything with the 2 mana. Which I kind of love, honestly. Let's increase our speed. We may want to chump with this guy eventually, but not until after he plays the obvious monstrous rage and we know where the trample is. Heartfire hero, sure. So he must have held up a lightning strike, yeah. Now he's going to use it on the Voice of Victory. That's fine, man. We staved off a whole bunch of damage because of the way we played things. And that actually feels pretty good. Being stuck on 2 is kind of rough, I'm not gonna lie. Let's just play the Ellis out, pass. If it survives, we can start gaining life. I am taking a business trip. I'm going to Origins, the tabletop gaming convention that's happening in Columbus, Ohio this weekend. Tabletop games, card games, all sorts of fun stuff. Alright, he's wasting his burn together to kill the Ellis. Wow. That's pretty much just us winning, right? At that point. I mean, assuming we can get some mana. I'm pretty sure that's just us winning. Let's prevent some damage. There's a land, which means we can double spell. It's going to cost us a life to do it, but I think it's probably worth it. And the real question is now, at this point, do we just race him? He's only got 1 card in hand. I think the answer is yes. I think we race him. I really do. Let's see what that last card is. He's probably going to hold on to it. He's got the Rockface Village. Too bad he didn't run just like some black duels. All mountains seems a little wasteful. At least he would have another creature to play. So he could hit us for 8 if he had another one. It's doubtful that he has another one. We're going to go Quarry Steel Cutter. Desperate Measures. Trigger, trigger, trigger. Draw a card. Ooh, we could play... We don't really need the extra mana right now, right? So we'll play Concealed Courtyard. And we'll just go ham, man. He's dead next turn, right? He's absolutely dead next turn. If he doesn't do something. Absolutely. Swift Spear. Sure. Swinging? Thank you for the nectar, Chunky. I'm gonna need a refill. That's not a vacation, that's a business trip. Yeah. You're not wrong. It's kind of both at the same time, though. Well, I think we win. I'm pretty sure we win. All we gotta do is double spell. We'll do the prowess trigger after the double spell so that the new tokens get the prowess trigger. That seems pretty good. Dollmaker Shop. All of the prowess triggers ever. And then we will smash you in the face. Thank you much. Thank you kindly. Good night, Good fight. Stupid mono red. Stupid mono red. Alright, this looks pretty good. We have enough mana. We have a turn 1 play into a lot of potential turn 2. Probably Dollmaker's Shop, to be honest. We'll see what happens. Courtyard. Nesting bot. We might want to Desperate Measures, though. I think it's probably best. It's probably the most value if we play the Dollmaker's Shop. That might force him to have to use removal on our nesting bot, which is really good for us if he does that. Yeah, super good. We still have a 1-1. We still have the Dollmaker's Shop. His removal is gone. So we will go Quarry Steel Cutter. And then we will go Scornblade Berserker. And we will swing for 4, trigger the Dollmaker's Shop, get another dude. Oh boy. So now the Scornblade Berserker can sack itself to draw if we're desperate and we need to. We could even do that after dropping an Ellis, so we can do an extra damage. Oh, Scavenger Regent though. I'm not gonna lie, that was really good. I guess the question is, do we waste our Desperate Measures in order to double spell swing and make a token? I think yes. I think it allows us to turn on Treacherous Greed next turn for sure, even if he's got spot removal. Which I actually think is really important. Unless he's got another Scavenger Regent, which he shouldn't. He could, but he shouldn't. We should be able to trigger the Treacherous Greed, refill our hand, and get even further. Claim territory, huh? Ooh, that might be too slow. That might be too slow. 2 mana removal spell on Ellis. Oh, you have to push the tapped creature. Interesting. Interesting. I would really like to double spell and save the Treacherous Greed if we can. Let's do this. Let's Corrupted Conviction token. Draw some cards. I guess we Desperate Measure just so we can make a token. So that we can make another token. And then before we hit, we're going to Desperate Measure the other token to hit the Prowess again and draw more cards. And get another trigger on Ellis. That's a bit much. We'll play the land and we'll pass. But it is nice that we can hold this up so in case he tries to kill our creature, we can sack it in response and get some card draw. This one is going up on the channel tomorrow. Unicorn. So look forward to it. It'll have a deck list, an Aether Hub link, all the normal stuff up on YouTube. Pass. My turn. Oh boy. Oh boy. How greedy do we want to get? How greedy do we want to get? We'll sack the token. If we draw into an untapped land, we still get to play Treacherous Greed. And maybe even just win. No dice, but we will play Voice of Victory. And then we'll swing with everybody. Because we can. Is he going to trade with Ellis? He is going to trade with Ellis. He'll go to 5. Which means Treacherous Greed next turn, almost certainly. Unless he's got another sweeper. He could draw into a second scavenging. Ballborn Titan. Well, I don't think that's enough. Scornblade Berserker. Voice of Victory. It's probably better than Treacherous Greed. Double spell. And I think this is enough. Pretty sure this is enough. Yeah. Yeah. -1. I wasn't going to do the math. We were slamming it home no matter what. Let's keep this. This looks pretty good. Since we're on the play, I think we're going to start with the Stadium Headliner. Try and get a tempo advantage here. Start swinging in, getting value. Probably just play Voice of Victory on 2, to be honest. If he does have a 1-mana removal spell, it's going to be something that hits an attacker. So if we play Voice of Victory first, he won't be able to play it. Theoretically. So next turn we can either play the War Leader's Call, which is supposed to be a tutor target. It's just a 1-of in this deck. Or we could play like Case into Nesting Bot or Desperate Measures. Let's set ourselves up with some value here. War Leader's Call. Oh my goodness. That is so much damage. Alright, he's at 5 on turn 3 in a 3-color deck. That's honestly pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie. Wow. All he did was play a Rest in Peace, and he's toast. Yeah, you have to main board Graveyard Hate these days because the decks you're up against are just nuts. No black mana, no 1-drops that aren't black mana, and only 2 lands. This is like a recipe for a disaster. We're gonna mulligan. This is much better. We can keep this. We'll toss back the Desperate Measures. So we can go like Concealed Courtyard into Nesting Bot, and then the Cliffs into potentially Voice of Victory. Swift Spear, sure. I would really love a 3rd land. Quarry Steelcutter into a Desperate Measures or Corrupted Conviction would be really strong. Plays the Cutter, sure. No blocks. Not yet. We'll take 2. Cliffs. Alright, definitely makes sense to play Voice of Victory here. No attacks. All you have to do against Mono Red is stay alive. Just not die. I guess this is Boros, technically. He's probably using auras and stuff to trigger his mice. He's gonna have to use 2 removal spells to get rid of the Voice of Victory. That feels really, really good for us. Granted, he does get the double spell. Still feels really, really good for us. Does he have the Monstrous Rage? That's the question. We're gonna do no blocks. Alright, Black Cleave Cliffs comes down. We'll play the Cutter. And we definitely want to be able to block. So I think the plan is here we swing for 1. And then we hit our dude. Double spell to get a blocker here. Get a token back as a chump blocker here. And also draw some cards. We're definitely on the back foot, but he's also running out of gas. So we might be okay. It really comes down to whatever we top deck next turn, to be completely honest. Dude, that's awful. Does he have another trigger? I think we have to, like, try. He's only got 1 card left. Monstrous Rage. The monk token? No, it's a burst lightning. Interesting. Why did he hit us, though? Seems like kind of a weird... I mean, we're dead because we flooded too many lands. 3 of the last 4 things we drew were lands that come into play tapped on 4 and a 4-drop. Like, literally the worst possible things we could have drawn into. 4 of them in a row. So crazy. We're gonna keep this. This looks good. We'll start by playing the Vantage and the Stadium Headliner. Intro, schmintro, indeed. We're jamming coffee. We're jamming coffee. I mean, I think Voice of Victory is better. We don't have anything that triggers off Prowess yet. And Case gets potentially slightly better after we have something that triggers off Prowess. My dog is still snoring up a storm. Lots of opportunities here. But I'm trying to think of what the best opportunity is. I mean, I think we gotta do this, right? Unfortunately, we don't get to attack with the token that we make. Because we gotta sacrifice it after declaring attacks. Then again, it would just enter tapped anyway, right? So it wouldn't be super relevant for us. Now we will sacrifice a dude to draw 2, trigger the Quarry Steel Cutter, and we will equip it just in case we're in the same situation next turn. This will give us the opportunity to swing with the original one with more power. Virtue of Persistence. Okay. So much value. I think... since things are gonna enter tapped anyway, I think Ellis is probably the way to go. And we will Corrupted Conviction again. Take an extra damage from the Ellis. This is where our damage potential starts to outshine the Authority. Because we can hit with the token and we can get a damage when it dies off of Ellis. 2 Case of the Stash Skeleton. Don't really like to see that. This might be a Kuja turn. I'm gonna be honest, this might be a Kuja turn. Yeah, this might be a Kuja turn. Let's just do it. We'll save the cases, I guess, for after Kuja is out. Our opponent's on 2. What happened, man? Wild. That Authority of the Consuls is doing a lot of work for him. But I'm kind of glad we got him to use some of his removal there. So we're going to play Kuja. Yeah, we're gaining him life, but we should be able to overtake that life gain pretty quickly. Kuja's going to have a huge target on his back now. Stock up? You can't stock up when we've got this kind of board. Are you crazy? Dude, wild. Alright, so we've got 3 spells. We're going to drop 1 for sure. Trigger, trigger, trigger. We're gonna buff up you. Or not. We're gonna buff up you. Scornblade Berserker looks good. We will swing with everybody. We're gonna sacrifice the skeleton token. Buff up all of our prowess stuff. Make another token. Oh, I shouldn't have moved it. That was a mistake. I clicked through too quick. It's okay, though. He would have been at 3 instead of 4. Kuja triggers makes us another wizard. See, the wizards are awesome because we can sacrifice them like tokens to all of our sacrifice stuff. But we can also just trigger them. So, we will sack the case. Now that we're in the end game, we can just find whatever we want and absolutely rock our opponent with it. We're going to go War Leader's Call. Cancel out the authority a bit. Trigger all the wizards. Trigger all the prowess. Absolutely insane. We'll play another case to trigger all the wizards, trigger all the prowess. Decline. Oh my god, dude. So crazy. So crazy. I think he's dead. I didn't do the math, but I'm pretty sure. And he can't even block and kill the Kuja because we found the War Leader's Call. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck techs, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.